Naftali said that these parshas are very interesting, so let's talk about something interesting, hopefully. Last week's okay. So this parsha we have the mitzvah of ir miklat, right? So we know the basic halach of a person, God forbid, kills another Jew by accident, b'shaygeg. So the halach is obviously you don't. There's no capital punishment for that. It was only b'shaygeg. It was only by accident, but you have a place to run to, a city of refuge, and that's the mitzvah. It's a mitzvah on this person that was hoyreg es hanefesh b'shageg, that kills another Jew by accident. There's a mitzvah on him to leave his home in Eretz Yisrael and to go to one of these specific cities of refuge, Ir Miklat. Okay, there were 6 altogether in Eretz Yisrael, 3 on the other side of the Yarden, 3 on the other side of the Jordan, and 3 on the mainland of Israel. And that's the mitzvah. Okay, so, like everything in Yiddishkeit, everything has a body and a soul to it, okay? So the body of this mitzvah is what I just said, that a person that kills b'shegeg has to run to Yer Miklat, to the city of refuge, to protect himself and so on. But as I said, that's the body. But there's a soul to every mitzvah. And there's something the Rebbeinu Shalom was telling us right now, mamish right now, a couple days before Rosh Chodesh Av, Tafshin Pei Aleph, the Rebbeinu Shalom was telling us something right now with this mitzvah. And so this we're going to try to figure out what exactly is the neshama, what's the soul of this mitzvah, what's the avodah that one can learn from the mitzvah of Ir Miklat. Okay, so the way we're going to go about doing this is I'm going to share with you something we find in the Rambam, in the halachas of Ir Miklat, okay? And then from there, we'll be able to hopefully feel what the neshama of this mitzvah is about. Okay, so the Rambam says like this. This is in Hilchos Ritzeach, okay? Laws of, God forbid, someone that kills. So the Rambam says as follows. The Rambam says, Sheish Arim Hayu, there were 6 cities of refuge, as I said. Shalosh Hivdil Moshe Rabbeinu Be'ever HaYarden, and 3 on the other side of the Jordan, 3 on the mainland of Israel. And in fact, Moshe Rabbeinu himself, although he wasn't able to get into the land of Israel, right? But when he was on the other side of the Jordan with everyone else, he separated 3 cities at that point. The Shalosh Hivdil Yeshua Be'eretz Canaan, and then the other 3 cities, Yeshua ben Nun separated when he got into Eretz Yisrael. Now the Rambam says as follows. The truth is, though, Ein achas ma'ari miklat koletes ad she'ivad l'kulam. The halachic status of an Ir Miklat, the fact that it's able to absorb these Yidden that are running, that it becomes a city of refuge, it only kicks in halachically when all 6 are separated, says the Rambam. So although Moshe Rabbeinu separated the first 3, but it only kicks in until the final 3 were separated as well.
There's different parts of that do actually work, even when they're not all 6.
So the Rambam is paskening, it's machlokes in the Gemara, but the Rambam is paskening that it only kicks in until all 6 are separated. So says the Rambam like this. So in that case, v'lama hevdilan. So why did Moshe Rabbeinu go out of his way to separate the first 3 if it wasn't going to work till Yeshua ben Nun went into the mainland and separated the next 3. Lam hevdilan. So Moshe Rabbeinu said to himself, listen, I have the opportunity to do the mitzvah of separating at least 3. Let me do that. Okay, so that's the pshat. Now, one problem with this is the way the Rambam is saying it is as if Moshe Rabbeinu went through this logic of like, listen, I have a mitzvah right now, I have an opportunity to do a mitzvah, might as well do it. But the problem is that it doesn't seem to be the mitzvah. The mitzvah doesn't seem to kick in yet. In other words, if these cities are only defined as cities of refuge until all 6 are separated, then until you do all 6, you didn't really do anything. So the question still begs an answer of why Moshe Rabbeinu went out of his way before he passed away to separate these first 3 cities. What was so enticing to him about this mitzvah of separating Ir Miklats that he had to connect to it, even though Moshe Rabbeinu would agree that the cities that he separated don't fully kick in until Yeshua ben Nun does the next 3. But a shaykhis, Moshe Rabbeinu wanted to have a shaykhis to this mitzvah of Ir Miklat. Why? What's so special about it? The truth is, the Medrash in fact says that Moshe Rabbeinu had a personal connection to this mitzvah of Ir Miklat. The Moshe Rabbeinu's neshama, the Medrash says, the Moshe Rabbeinu's neshama was connected to this. All of Torah obviously is Moshe Rabbeinu, but l'maisa of all mitzvahs, this one mitzvah of Ir Miklat was something that spoke to Moshe Rabbeinu in particular. So we have to figure that out. What was so special about this mitzvah that Moshe wants to connect to it? More than that, the Rambam goes on further, and the Rambam says like this: B'mei Melech HaMashiach, when Mashiach comes, we're actually going to add another 3 cities to these 6. The Rambam talks about this. So when Mashiach comes, Eretz Yisrael will expand. There'll be more territory to Eretz Yisrael, and for that extra territory, there'll be another additional 3 cities set up, altogether 9. So this is what the Mefarshim, another question Mefarshim deal with. No, what's the purpose of an Ir Miklat? For a Yid that, God forbid, it kills another Jew by accident, so somewhere for him to run to. So when Mashiach comes, we're going to have those concerns. Mashiach comes, there's not going to be any war, there's not going to be any evil, there's not going to be any Yitzhahara. There's for sure not going to be such a tragedy like that where one Jew kills another. So if the entire purpose of Ir Miklat is simply to allow a place of refuge for a Jew that kills by accident, that doesn't seem to be so relevant when Mashiach comes. So it's another question for Hashem ask. Clearly there's something else going on to Ir Miklat over here besides just the practicality of it, of like a place for such a Jew to run to. First of all, again, if it's just the practicality, why is Moshe Rabbeinu so connected to it? And why is it something that we have to be makbid about and even add additional cities when Mashiach comes? So there's something else going on here. Okay. So there's another halach in the Rambam again. Just a couple minutes of halacha. The Rambam says like this. The Rambam writes, Hagayla, and it's coming from a Mishnah in Mesachas Matos, okay? The Mishnah says as follows, Hagayla, the person that has to run to a city of refuge, is not allowed to leave his city. He's not allowed to leave that city of refuge that he runs to. It's a mitzvah. Shama Teishav, he has to sit there. Says the Rambam, Afilu Dvar mitzvah, even if the only way for him to hear Shai from Rosh Hashanah is to leave the city of refuge. He's not allowed to leave. Oila Eidos, or let's say he's the only witness for a particular case, and for him to testify in court, he has to leave. He's not allowed to. Bein Eidos Mammon, Bein Eidos Nefashas. Even if his testimony would save a life, he's not allowed to leave his city. Even if it's going to save a life, or let's say he's for whatever reason the situation is that there's Jewish people that their lives are in danger, and the only one that could save them is this guy. He's not allowed to leave the city of refuge, even to save another Jew. The Rambam says, even if all of Klal Yisrael are in danger, and the only person that can help them is him. Kiyav ben Tzruya, like he's the general of the army. Kiyav ben Tzruya. Such a person still is not allowed to leave. Ad Maisa Kain Gadol, until the Kain Gadol dies, then he's allowed to leave, and so on. He's not allowed to leave the city of refuge, even to save another neshama, to save a yid, even to save all of Klal Yisrael. That's the Rambam. It comes from a Mishnah Mesachas Matos. The question is why? Well, the Koch Nefesh. So even if you tell me that there's a mitzvah of Shama Teishav, there's a mitzvah putting on tefillin every day, there's a mitzvah of keeping Shabbos, and there's a mitzvah on a person that kills another Jew by accident for him to sit in the Ir Miklat. But we know what's the rule when it comes to Pekuach Nefesh. Pekuach Nefesh overrides everything, right? So there's a mitzvah putting on tefillin, but if Hatzalah call comes in, you don't put on tefillin, you run to the Hatzalah call. There's a mitzvah of keeping Shabbos, but if you have to save a life, if your wife is in labor, and there's no way to get there unless driving you, so you drive it, finished. So you have a mitzvah of sitting in the Ir Miklat, but if Pekuach Nefesh override it. So what's going on over here? So the truth is, the Rambam himself, after quoting this halacha that I just read, he adds another line, which it sounds like the Rambam is trying to explain it, but we have to figure out what the explanation is. The Rambam says, Ve'im yatsa, and if he leaves the Ir Miklat, even to save another Jew, hiter atzmei lemisa, he's now forfeited his life. He's forfeited his life. What does that mean? So the Rambam is referencing a halacha that he mentioned earlier, which is as follows. The Rambam said that if you have this person, the Rambam writes as follows. Yatsa chutz l'tchum ir miklatai. If this Jew, let's say in another regular situation, forget Pekuach Nefesh, he leaves his city of refuge, the Rambam says as follows. Let me just get the exact language. Yeah, nichnas le'ir miklata. If he goes to the city of refuge, v'yatsa chutz l'tchum, and then he leaves on his own, bezadan on purpose. Harei hiter atzmei lemisa. He has now forfeited his life. Ureshus l'goyel adam lahargai, and the family members of the victim that he killed have the right to kill him. V'imhargei kol adam, and if even another person happens to kill this person, in chayavanov, there's no capital punishment for murdering this guy. So what the Rambam, this is an interesting halacha, that a person, again, that has to run to an Ir Miklat, if he leaves the Ir Miklat, anyone that kills him is not obligated capital punishment. So, the Rambam is telling us that the reason why, says the Rambam, you're not allowed to leave the Ir Miklat even for the sake of saving another Jewish person's life. Why? Says the Rambam, because by leaving the Ir Miklat, you're forfeiting your life. And how is that the answer? Meaning what? So the Mefarshim are struggling to figure this out. What exactly is, how does this answer the question? So some commentaries say that what the Rambam is telling us is a very simple thing, which is that of course there's an idea of Pekuch Nefesh to save another Jewish person's life, for sure. But what if by saving this other Jew, you're putting your own life in danger? Are you then obligated to save a Jew? Let's say you see someone drowning, God forbid, you see someone drowning. But for me to jump, I'm not such a good swimmer. If I jump in, my life is going to be in danger by trying to save this guy. So am I obligated, right, or even allowed, to put my own life in danger to save another person? So some commentaries say, well, maybe that's what Rambam is trying to say. By him leaving the city of refuge, he's now endangering his own life. Because anyone that, now there's a warrant on his head, you know what I mean? And anyone that the family members might be out to get him now. So he's putting his life in danger. And so he's doing that in order to save another Jew. You're not supposed to do that. So that's what some Mefarshim say. The problem with this is that this issue of putting your life in danger in order to rescue another Jew, whether you're supposed to do that or not, is a big question. It's a big question. And it's a big machlokes, it's a big to-do. So to say that the Rambam is picking sides in this issue, it's not so simple to say, because there's going to be a lot of commentaries that hold not like that hold that even if it means putting your life in danger, you are supposed to put your life in danger, or at least allowed to save another Jew. So back to square one. Why would the Rambam say, what's the reason why you're not allowed to leave the city of refuge, even to save all of Klal Yisrael? Like you're the general, the only one that can do it. You're the only one. Why? Says the Rambam, because by leaving the city of refuge, you're forfeiting your life. Yeah, but I'm still allowed to, maybe I should still put my life in danger in order to save another Jew. Just like jumping into the river to save another Jew, according to many people, I should do that, and I'm definitely allowed to. So why am I now allowed to set out of the city of refuge to save another Jew?
Taking a bullet for another Jew.
Taking a bullet is something else, because that's for sure. So there's suffix sakana. This is going to be there's suffix sakana. There's putting your life in putting your life in danger, so to speak, because this Jew, like this guy in the river, he's for sure going to drown. And by me jumping in, it's possible, it's not possible. So I'm putting myself in a suffix in order to save this guy from a vade threat. Now you're saying a very lamdish art, which is the answer. Okay. Yeah, good. No, it's good. He's always one step ahead.
On the other side, it's also a bari shama, right? Going to say edus to free somebody is a bari, but jumping in the river is a shama. Who knows you're going to save him?
Exactly, and even so, even if you're vade going to save him, but by stepping out, you're putting yourself in a suffix danger. According to many poskim, that's still something that you're allowed to do. So why would the Rambam say again, going back? The Rambam saying you're not allowed to step foot out of the boundaries of Ir Miklat. Why? Well, let's say because now you're putting yourself in danger. Yeah, but I could still put myself in danger if it's going to for sure save another person's life. So that's the question. So the answer is as follows. When the Rambam said that halacha, that when a person steps out of the Ir Miklat, now fair game, the Rambam said as follows. This is the language of the Rambam. The Rambam's words are, again, the guy goes to the city of refuge and then leaves. The first thing the Rambam said, Hariza hiter atzme lemisa. He has now forfeited his life. Number one. Then the Rambam says another sentence. Another sentence, Rishus l'galadam l'hargai. They're now also, the family members of the victim that he killed have the right to kill him. And more than that, even anyone else that kills him is not obligated capital punishment.
Bishogeg, right?
Bishogeg. The Rambam seems to be telling us a huge chiddush, which is that when this guy leaves the city of refuge, besides the fact that yes, now the family members of the original victim are able to take revenge, or anyone that kills him is not obligated capital punishment. The first sentence the Rambam said is what? Is the Rambam said, he has forfeited his life. What the Rambam is telling us is a huge chiddush, which is that by the very moment that he steps out of the boundaries of the city of refuge, he has now redefined himself. While he's in the city of refuge, he is now considered to be a live person, a living person. Once he steps out of the city of refuge, he has now redefined himself in halacha as someone that's called Gavra Ketela, a dead man walking. He is a dead person already. He is a dead person. Besides that, so the very fact that he's breathing air outside of his Ir Miklat, in other words, the Rambam is telling us is that the concept of Ir Miklat is not just a city in which he goes to protect himself from the threats that exist outside the city. It's much more than that. The halacha of Ir Miklat says that the moment that this guy kills another Jew by accident, he is now a fish out of water. His place of existence, his place of chiyus, his place of life, is only in that city of refuge. Like a human being, we're not fish, right? So we're not necessarily like connected to the land like a fish in water, right? But so you can go from one place to another place, and it doesn't necessarily uproot your, even though we say like you have roots in a certain place, it's not like a tree where literally you have roots, right? You go from one place to another place. The halacha of Ir Miklat is not like that. The concept of Ir Miklat is that this Jew is redefined as mamish like a tree. He's redefined as a fish in water. That literally the place of his existence, the place of his sustenance, the place of his life is the Ir Miklat. And the second he leaves from that city's boundaries, not only is he now susceptible to attack, but it's more than that. Hitter Atzal Misa, he is no longer considered to be alive. It's like taking a fish literally out of water. The fish is no longer alive. Every single second it's dying. Because it's not just out of its house. The second you leave your house, you're not dying. You're just out of your home. But you take a fish out of water, the home of the fish is water more so than our homes, right? The water to a fish is not just its house. It's not just its environment that it's protected in. The fish water to fish is where its life force comes from. So says the Rambam, the moment he leaves his house, he has now given up his life. He has forfeited his life. He is now literally dead. Besides that, or on top of that, if he is now also susceptible to physical attack, and if the family members of his first victim kill him, then they don't get punished for it. But it's more than just now. So let's go back. The second he leaves his city, he's not putting himself in possible danger. He is killing himself. It's like Naftali said, if it's one thing, are you to take a bullet to literally sacrifice your life for another Jew? That no one says you're supposed to do that. There's one thing to put yourself in danger to save another Jew. Fine, you could do that. But to literally kill yourself, or for the Torah to say that you have to kill yourself for another Jew, that we don't say. So therefore, when the Rambam said, this guy that's in the Ir Miklat, he should not leave even for the purposes of saving another Jew. We asked why? What's the worst that happens? He puts himself in possible danger from attack from other people, but it's for the sake of for sure saving another life. The answer is he's not just putting himself in possible danger, he's forfeiting his life. He doesn't exist outside the city. So that's not just putting himself in danger, that's literally committing suicide. At that moment, he's committing suicide for the sake of saving another Jew. That we don't say. Now what we see from here is a huge chiddush. Let's take a step back. What we just learned is that the Rambam is telling us that the concept of Ir Miklat is a redefinition of who this Jew is vis-a-vis Eretz Yisrael. That's what it is, right? Until this point, until this mitzvah comes, what is a Jew and what is the land? A Jew is a person, and the land is land. And it happens to be just like the Spanish have a homeland, and the English have a homeland, and the French have a homeland, so the Jewish people have a homeland. Can you exist outside your homeland? Of course you can. You're just susceptible to dangers. You're not as comfortable when you're not at home. You're a little bit uneasy, but you exist. The chiddush of this mitzvah Ir Miklat is a redefinition of what a Jew is vis-a-vis Eretz Yisrael. That Eretz Yisrael is not seen as just a homeland within which we are now more comfortable, within which we could have, you could talk to an Israeli cop a little bit differently than you could talk to the NYPD. You know what I'm saying? Like I remember when I was in Eretz Yisrael for yeshiva, when I came back, so I had, you get all your luggage and everything, and I was waiting by, in JFK, I was waiting by sort of like the sliding doors as you're about to leave, and I was waiting for my ride. It was cold outside. So I was waiting inside till my ride comes. And there was a bunch of cops there, and the cops, they tell me, hey, you gotta wait outside. So I was in Eretz Yisrael for a while at that point, and I was thinking Israel. So I started saying, do me a favor, right? I'm just waiting for a few minutes until my ride comes. And then the cop looked at me like, who do you think you are talking to me like that? And I realized, okay, 1 second. Yeah, I have to readjust. I'm not talking to my brother. I'm talking to, they're nice people. I'm talking to, it's not Eretz Yisrael. So there's something, so Eretz Yisrael means you're comfortable, it means you could talk to people, it means a hamish. But Ir Miklat is redefining that. Ir Miklat says that a Jew is not a Jew and this is her homeland. Ir Miklat says that Eretz Yisrael is where that's our life force. That's our life blood. You're a fish out of water without Eretz Yisrael. And by the way, this concept of Ir Miklat and the redefining of what the land is, it's not just about the physical land also. The land means the Jewish people, right? And what this mitzvah is telling us is that a Jew has to recognize that even vis-a-vis other Jews, like Rav Kook used to say that Eretz Yisrael is not a place. Eretz Yisrael is a place that's pulsating with the heart and the spirit of the entire Jewish people. That's what Eretz Yisrael is. And if any Jew individually is their life force comes from the land, the meaning of that is that every single one of us, our life force is what? Is coming from the collective whole of the Jewish people. Rav Kook said this, he said that what's the difference between the individual pieces of the Jewish people versus the individual pieces of the French people? So he said there's no such thing really as the French people. There are many individuals that happen to share a common language and a common culture and a common background and common sensibilities. And so memelo, you put millions of people with similarities together, boom, you got a people. But ultimately, in its very essence, every single individual French person is his own person. Not so with the Jewish people. Who you are is not an individual. Who you are is an extension from this collective organism called the Jewish people. There's no such thing as a collective organism called the French. There's no such thing as a collective organism called the Spanish. There's something called the Klolius Knesset Yisrael, the Jewish people. And who you are is an extension of a branch off of that collective tree. And to think for a second that you could exist as an individual piece of wood off of that collective tree, that's called being dead. That's not called being alive. So Ir Miklat, let's understand, this mitzvah is not just a particular mitzvah, one of the 613. It's a mitzvah through which one redefines one's very existence. One redefines one's relationship to the land and the relationship to the Jewish people. And this is something that this person who happened to kill another Jew in particular needs to learn more than anyone else. And the Hashem has a way of doing this, where Dafka Hashem likes, surprising us. Like he likes, having that like hard left turn, like last you'd expect it. And therefore it's the same thing over here. Reuven chas v'shalom, without doing it on purpose, but Reuven kills Shimon. That means such a thing. The fact that you could have one Jew kill another would seem to say that these are two separate individual people and they have nothing to do with each other, and they're similar to two Frenchmen or two Englishmen or two Spanish people, and it's possible therefore for one person to take the life of the other. And by Reuven killing Shimon, it doesn't mean that there's anything missing in Reuven. But Davka, that person who kills another Jew by accident, is the catalyst to reveal this much deeper truth of who the Jewish people are. And there's no such thing as one Jew taking the life of another Jew and that's it. Who you are, Reuven, is an extension of this collective whole, which is exactly what Shimon was. And so Davka, by this Jew who kills another Jew by accident, who his actions would seem to say that these two people are completely separate universes. So much so that literally you can have one person snuff out the life of the other. Dafka, from that Jew is revealed this deep truth of Ir Miklat, that every single Jew is coming from this central force. And this is why Moshe Rabbeinu, going back to the beginning, this is why Moshe Rabbeinu of all mitzvahs was so connected to the mitzvah of Ir Miklat. Because Chazal say that Moshe Rabbeinu was shakal connected Kol Yisrael. Moshe Rabbeinu is not just a tzaddik. What makes Moshe Rabbeinu unique? He was smarter than everyone else. Moshe Rabbeinu is not just smarter than everyone else. Moshe Rabbeinu was a single individual person that was the embodiment of all of Klal Yisrael. That's who Moshe Rabbeinu was. This is why Moshe Rabbeinu, his whole life was about getting to Eretz Yisrael. How tragic it was that he wasn't able to step foot in the land. But because Moshe Rabbeinu was a person that every single Jew looked at Moshe Rabbeinu and saw themselves. Every single Jew saw Moshe Rabbeinu as the root and source of where we come from. Disconnecting yourself from Moshe Rabbeinu is disconnecting yourself from your very root. Disconnecting yourself from Moshe Rabbeinu means disconnecting yourself from the people. And so Davka Moshe Rabbeinu had an unbelievable attachment to this mitzvah in particular, to Ir Miklat. So much so that even if I'll separate 3 cities, says Moshe Rabbeinu, even if it doesn't kick in yet, and I need to wait for Yeshua ben Nun to do the other 3, I have to have a shaykhus to this mitzvah. Because the essence of this mitzvah is a redefinition of what the Jewish people are. It's a redefinition of our relationship to the land, and that's something that Moshe Rabbeinu his whole life was about that. His whole life was about that there's not 600,000 individual people. All there is one with 600,000 individual expressions. But it's one entity, and that's who Moshe Rabbeinu is. And this is why even when Mashiach comes, or Davka when Mashiach comes, when there's an expansion of the land of Eretz Yisrael, will we then have the completed mitzvah of Ir Miklat to separate another 3 cities? And we ask the question, when Mashiach comes, there's not going to be much issues of Reuven killing Shimon, Chas v'shalom. The answer is that's just the shell of the mitzvah. That's just the opportunity the Rebbeinu Shalom gave us to reveal this much deeper, significant truth, which is all the more apparent and all the more necessary to realize with the coming of Mashiach. Because what's Mashiach? Mashiach comes. The coming of Mashiach is the revelation of this truth. Mashiach means the revelation of this truth that every single one of us are literally extensions and expressions of one huge entity called the Jewish people. Why was the second Beis Mikdash destroyed? Because of Sinas Chinam. So really? And that's what we're still suffering from. Why? Why was that, of all mitzvahs, of all averos, why was that the cause of our being kicked out of Eretz Yisrael? The answer is because the root of Sinas Chinam, the root of senseless hatred, is why Reuven, why do you hate Shimon? I don't like his nose. That's not real. But the root of Sinas Chinam, that's how it expresses itself. The root of Sinas Chinam is Reuven seeing himself as different than Shimon, and seeing himself as my universe, and Shimon is his universe. But if a person really understood the truth of Ir Miklat, which is what? That every single one of the Jewish people is coming an expression of one single entity called the Jewish people, and Reuven is not one universe and Shimon is not the other universe. We are both expressions and extensions and reflections of one single universe called the Jewish people. Then it's not. Then of course you have a different nose, but it doesn't bother me. It's my nose. It's my nose. It's just another. I'm expressing the Jewish people's nose in a particular way, and you're expressing the Jewish people's nose in a particular way. It's not a steer. It's not a contradiction, and I don't feel threatened by your existence. So Dafka, this is the Nakuda. Therefore, Dafka, when Mashiach comes, the coming of Mashiach, which means the fixing and the correcting of that Avera called Sinas Chinam, which could only be corrected and fixed by the revelation of this truth, that every single Jew is an extension of that collective organism called the Jewish people. So of course when Mashiach comes, we're going to fully fulfill the mitzvah of Ir Miklat by separating even another 3 cities. Because that's what the mitzvah is about. The mitzvah is not really about giving people the opportunity to protect themselves from threats of family members. It's not just about refuge. It's about revealing this truth that your existence comes from Eretz Yisrael, that your existence comes from the Jewish people. This is what Achdus is about. This is what this time of year is about. When we're getting into Shabbos, the 9 days leading up to Tisha B'Av, where we're trying to feel the pain of others, feel the pain of the Jewish people, be a little bit more sensitive to what exile is. This is the root. The root of exile is the very fact that when you look in the mirror, you're not seeing who you are. The greatest exile is that we're exiled from ourselves. We don't know who we are. Because the nature of Golus is when you look in the mirror, all you see is Reuven. And when Shimon looks in the mirror, all you see is Shimon. Levi looks in the mirror, all he sees is Levi. But the truth is, that's Golus, that's exile. The truth is, when you look in the mirror, you should see the Jewish people. That's what's going to be with the coming of Mashiach. That itself is what we have to be working on. And to the extent that we don't feel that itself, it means that we're experiencing Golus. Hashem should help each and every one of us, that we should see ourselves in such a way, to be empowered by that. This is not something that makes a person feel less. Like now you could come out of this, okay, so that means I'm less of a person than I thought. I thought I was Reuven. And now you're telling me I'm just a branch. No, but it's much deeper than that. You're a branch of this huge tree. You're a branch, you're an expression. You're an individual, powerful expression of this infinite being called the Jewish people. That's unbelievably powerful. It's humbling, but it's empowering at the same time. And that's what it means to be a Yid. Hashem should help us. We should be zocheh to have that confidence and that strength to know who we are, that the ultimate truth of who we are, and Makar Beis Chayenu, the root of our very lives, which is Eretz Yisrael, and the Beis HaMikdash, which is the heart of Eretz Yisrael, should be fully manifest, and every single one of us should be invigorated and enlivened by that truth, by that reality of Eretz Yisrael. Should be zocheh to get back to the land the way it's supposed to be. Amen.